أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. مظلوم يا غريب كربلاء. يا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فلما أحس عيسى منهم الكفر قال من أنصاري إلى الله؟ قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله آمنا بالله واشهد بأننا مسلمون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls and the enlightenment of the hearts and for the hastening of the reappearance of Baqiyatullah al-A'zam, Ruhi wa Arwah al-Alameen lahu al-Fida, enlighten your souls and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the concepts that exist widely around the world today is the notion of the association of the human being with a group of individuals, a party, a team within a sport arena. In other words, the idea of supporting a concept, supporting a faith-based system, supporting a particular group of individuals who are out there to achieve a purpose is a common practice amongst human beings today. And one of the characteristics of this, of course, is loyalty. In other words, if I, for instance, desire or like a particular group, such as a sports team, a soccer team, a basketball team, I follow a group of individuals, I express my loyalty towards them. And that idea is deeply embedded within human behavior, the association with individuals that we desire, that we like to associate with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the term Ansar, meaning the supporters, and refers to the story of Prophet Isa ala nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa alayhi afdalus salati was salam, in talking about this idea of the best of supporters. Today we have people who support a political party, people who support a band, people who support an individual for a position in government. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the best amongst the individuals who support are those who are known as Ansarullah. Because Isa alayhi salam came to see what? He came and investigated his Hawariyun. The Hawariyun are whom? The Hawariyun were the disciples of Jesus. The disciples who had associated themselves with Isa alayhi salam. The Quran tells us, فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ. Isa alayhi salam understood that the Hawariyun were believers in God the Almighty. Yet he felt that they slowly began to disassociate themselves from the path of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, they began to disbelieve, but very subtly. This ihsas, ahassa Isa minhum al-kufr, meaning what? Meaning that they were apparently believers, but they displayed certain characteristics which were reminiscent of people who were losing faith. Because sometimes throughout history, what do we find? We find people who claim to be following a path, yet within them, their characteristics, their speech, their conduct leaves a lot to be desired. In other words, not part of the system. Di'bil al-Khuza'i, Radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. Who is Di'bil al-Khuza'i? He was a poet of the Ahl al-Bayt. He used to recite lines of poetry and praised by the Ahl al-Bayt, such as Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And therefore, what do you find? That Di'bil one day came to Imam and he recited this wonderful set of poetry, Manazilu Ayat. He mentioned this, and Imam alayhi salam then gave him 200 dinars. He said, this is for you. Di'bil said, I don't need it, Ya ibn Rasulullah. I do it for the sake of Allah. Imam alayhi salam said, take it because you'll need it. As soon as Di'bil took the 200, he said to the Imam, this narration is found in Uyun Akhbar al-Rida by Sheikh As-Saduq Radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. He said, can I have your jubba? Jubba is something like this, which the Imam used to wear. So the Imam alayhi salam gave him his jubba, and Di'bil traveled. He was going towards Qum, the direction towards Qum from Khurasan, from Merv. On the way, the Di'bil al-Khuza'i, Sha'iru Ahl al-Bayt, when he was traveling, there was a group of thieves, bandits. They stopped him. They took his money away, and they took the jubba away, and they imprisoned him because they didn't know what to do with him. They were a group of what? A group of bandits and thieves. One day he was held in this particular room in the desert, in a place, and they were deciding what to do with him. He heard one of them recite the lines of poetry that he had written. Manazulu ayatin khalat min tilawatin. He started to say, hold on, that's my poetry that they're reciting. So he called the guard, he called one of those bandit thieves. He said, excuse me, do you know who's written these lines? The man said, yes, I know. His name is Di'bil al-Khuza'i. He said, I am Di'bil al-Khuza'i. I've written these lines. He said, I don't believe you. Prove to me that you are Di'bil. He said, I will recite for you all the poetry lines. The entire poem I will recite for you. He said, wait, let me get my man in charge, the head of the bandits. He comes. He says, are you really Di'bil? He says, yes, I'm Di'bil, Sha'iru Ahl al-Bayt. He says, recite for me the poetry. He recites the poetry. Now notice this man, head of the thieves. He comes to Di'bil and says, oh Di'bil, I'm so sorry. Ana min shi'atu Ali ibn Abi Talib. This man comes and says, I am from the Shia of Ali, yet at the same time he is what? He is stealing. He is the head of the thieves and the bandits. So he says to him, I didn't know that you are the Di'bil here. Take the jubba and take the money and go and, continue on your journey. Di'bil, of course, continues on his journey. He reaches the area of Qum. In Qum, what do we find? In Qum, the people there, they find out that he has a jubba from Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam. They say, we want this, we want to take it from you. He doesn't want to give it to them. They take it by force and they give him just a piece. They leave him with just a piece. On his return back to Mashhad, this time he does get robbed properly, but he had hidden this 200 from the Imam somewhere where they did not find. When he got to Mashhad, this was the only money that he had, and he remembered Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam had told him that you will need it. His slave, one of his slaves, was a lady that was suffering with illness which was incurable, the eye which was incurable. He came and placed what? He placed the part of the jubba he had from Imam Al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Shamsu al-Shumus wa Anisu al-Nufus, Gharib al-Ghuraba. He places it on the eyes of that lady. She is cured with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore you find that this is what, by the way, nobody should object to this. Why? Because Yaqub alayhi salam was blind, right? Yaqub was crying for many years for Yusuf. And Yusuf salamullahi alayhi, when he told his brothers that I am Yusuf, and you need to go and get my father Yaqub, they said Yaqub has lost his eyesight, he's now blind. Yusuf did what? He prayed to Allah, he said, oh Allah, make my father return back my sight. Did he do that? He did not. He said, take my shirt. Why? Because the shirt of a ma'soom, anything associated with a ma'soom, with a blessed individual, is not normal, in the sense that it has a barakah to it. So when they took the shirt of Yaqub and placed it on the eyes of Yusuf, when they took the shirt of Yusuf and placed it on the eye of Yaqub, he was cured and he was able to see. And this is in the Quran and no one disputes it. Therefore, what do we find? We find that Isa alayhi salam recognized that these individuals were losing faith. There were characteristics in them. There was some kind of hypocrisy, dichotomy, double standards. They believe, yet their, of course, actions do not correspond with their iman. قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. He said, who amongst you are the supporters as far as those who are the best category of loyal associates are concerned? أنصار الله. قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله آمنا بالله واشهد بأننا مسلمون. We are the Ansar. We can tell you that we will stand with the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we will submit. واشهد بأننا مسلمون. Question. In this day and age, how do you and I become one of Ansarullah? Why? Because the Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kunu Ansarullah. It's a command from Allah. He addresses you and I and says, be from the supporters of Allah. كما قال عيسى ibn Maryam. Just how Isa ibn Maryam informed his disciples, Man Ansari ila Allah. That's another verse. But the key thing is Allah is saying, be amongst a group of people who are known as Ansarullah. Every single person here should be thinking with themselves, how do I attain this special status of being known as from the Ansarullah? How? What is the way in which I can attain this? What is the mechanism in which I can be classified from the supporters of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala? There are so many areas in which we can look at, but I will look at a few only, derived from the Quran and the teachings of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhimus salam, in order for us to be illuminated in these nights and in these days of mourning and recalling of the tragedy of Abu Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi and the epic of Karbala. The notion that is presented in the Quran, first and foremost, and I would like your attention because this point is very important and delicate, that when it comes to Karbala, there is the greatest lesson from the tragedy of Ashura and the biggest sacrifice and the most held event in the eyes of humanity, because you find today there are over 50 million human beings that were killed in World War II. 36 million people were killed in the Tang dynasty in 736. Right? You find, for instance, 2.6 million people were killed in the Korean War in the 1950s. In Karbala, 680 AD, 61 years after the migration of the Holy Prophet, 10th of Muharram, a few hundred people, a few hours, and it ended. But today, no event is recalled, remembered, honored, respected, revered. People cry, people shed their tears, like Karbala and Ashura. A university of principles and values. You want to know about liberation and freedom? Look at Hussein ibn Ali. You want to look at patience? Look at Zainab. If you want to look at loyalty, look at Abbas. If you want to be an individual who understands respect to parents and obedience, look at Ali and Al-Akbar. If you want to know how Islam denounces racism, look at John. If you want to know about love of Allah, look at people like Abis. Every individual in Karbala is a teacher, and the head of the university is Hussein ibn Ali, and the principles and the values are so many. But there is one that I would like to focus on. That Imam al-Hussein, on his journey to Karbala, he established a very critical, sensitive area that we have to understand. And that's what? Karbala was a school of opportunity and a choice for humanity. Meaning what? Everywhere Hussein alayhi salam stops, he invites people. He tells people, come. They have a choice. Qasr Bani Muqatil. There is a man by the name of Ubaydullah ibn al-Hurr al-Ju'fi. He had fought Amir al-Mu'mineen in Siffin. Imam al-Hussein goes to him and says to him, he goes to him, Aba Abdullah, the grandson of the Prophet, goes to whom? Goes to Ubaydullah in the tent and says, Ya Ubaydullah, I'm giving you a choice. This is your chance. I will guarantee Jannah for you. Just come with me. Ubaydullah says, Ya Rasulullah, I know that you're right. I know, I'm not disputing. But you know, I have family. I have my business. I have my life. I'll give you my horse. Take my horse. Imam says, La hajata lana. I have no need for your horse. But know this, if you hear our cries and the cry of my family on the day of Ashura and you do not come to their aid, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn your life upside down and you will never taste happiness. And he was, Ubaydullah ibn al-Hurr al-Ju'fi, stood against Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, and of course his life was full of misery, as predicted by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, full of opportunities. Islam is a religion that challenges the human beings and says, you know what? From your life, from the beginning of your life till the end, Allah will shower you with so many chances. These are known as Al-Furas. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, says what? اغتنموا الفرص فإنها تمر كمر السحاب. Utilize opportunities because they flow, they go quickly, just like how clouds move in a fast fashion. Today, what do we realize? We realize that individuals who miss an opportunity, who do not seize the chance and capitalize on it, they will be regretful, they'll be remorseful. There was a man by the name of Abdullah at the time of Rasul al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He was not a Muslim, he was a non-Muslim. He lived outside Medina. And one day his parents said to him, go to Medina and can you purchase something? I don't know what it was, the narration doesn't tell us. He went to Medina. On his way towards the store to buy this particular product, he hears the beautiful recitation and the melodious qira'ah of the Holy Quran from the Holy Prophet or some of the Sahaba. He enters the mosque of the Holy Prophet. He says, what is this all about? They say to him, this is Islam. This is the beautiful religion of Allah, the peaceful coexistent religion. He says, can you recite, can you teach me, can you tell me? I'm interested, I want to know. They recited the Quran, he was mesmerized. Now he had a choice. He could have said, I'll think about it. Right? I will come back later. I'll go home, discuss with my parents, maybe 50-50, or call a friend, or I will do something until I come to the conclusion. No. As soon as he heard this, he said, I will embrace. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Rasulullah welcomed him into the community. He went back home, his parents, he told them, I'm Muslim. They said, what? We sent you to Medina to buy something and now you're Muslim? He said, yes, I'm Muslim. No ifs and buts, I've submitted. He died a while later, not much longer, a while later. He's still young. He dies whilst the Holy Prophet is still alive. The Prophet of Islam hears of his death. He makes a special attempt and effort to pray on the body of this young man. And he says to the companions, هَذَا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْجَنَّةِ. This is a man from the people of heaven. Why? There was a chance and he utilized it. He didn't think and ponder 500 times when there is an opportunity to be what? To be advancing. Look at the magicians at the time of Musa alayhi salam. When Musa showed them this powerful miracle, what did they do? Immediately they submitted, right? قَالُوا آمَنَّا بِرَبِّ مُوسَى. Yes, we believe in the Lord of Musa. No ifs and buts. No time lapse between the miracle and their belief, despite them knowing that Fir'aun is going to crucify them. Immediately they submitted. Today, my dear brothers and sisters, we have an amazing opportunity. An opportunity that we will be held accountable for on the Day of Judgment. An opportunity to spread the ulum of Ali Muhammad, an opportunity to improve ourselves, a chance to progress, to develop, to start a clean page. Muharram is the greatest opportunity. Allah gives us stations in the year to refuel. You know, we refuel our cars. We need to refuel ourselves, our spirituality. So what do? In the occasions and in the seasons, we utilize them. And we do not wait for them to go. Sometimes we are hesitant, right? Sometimes when things are told to us, we delay it. Sometimes we procrastinate, meaning we leave things that we're supposed to do and we do things that we enjoy doing. I remember reading a story that there was a lady in Egypt. She did not wear the hijab, right? And she said, I'm not interested in hijab. Her friend said, let's go and listen to a lecture. They took her. She said, fine, I'll go and listen, but I'm not convinced. She said, fine, you don't have to wear the hijab, just listen to the lecture. She was taken to the place where there was a lecture about the importance of the Islamic dress code of modesty and chastity. Hijab that gives the woman what? Hijab that gives the woman her identity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ أَدْنَا أَن يُعْرَفْنَا فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. That hijab is a means by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored the female and they become the ambassadors of the religion of Islam. By wearing it, they get their reward continuously without having to do anything. Whereas males have to be in obedience of Allah, dhikr of Allah, ibadah, or something in that regard to get reward. Whereas females, by just wearing the hijab, the meter when it comes to reward is always working, provided they're doing it for the sake of Allah, of course. She heard this and much more, and she was convinced. She said to her friend, you know what? I'm not going to leave this place until I wear hijab. She said to her, you know what? Let's go home and I'll buy you a nice hijab from the market. You want the one you choose. You've been non-hijabi for all your life. Surely a few hours won't make a difference. She said, no. This is the moment I've made that decision, and I am not going to leave this mosque, this hall, until I wear the hijab. She said, okay, you wait here, I'll go and buy you a hijab and I'll come back. She went, she bought the hijab. This is a real story, I heard it from a scholar. She came back, she gave the lady a hijab. She wore the hijab, she was happy, she was tranquil. She left the mosque, she was crossing the road, she was hit by a car and she passed away. Now this should make us think, should we delay? Is there anyone amongst us that can guarantee that for the next 10 minutes they're alive, for the next 5 minutes they're alive, for the next minute that they're alive? Absolutely not. There are people who have lost their lives in all different age groups, in all different lifespans, young, youth, middle-aged, sudden death, right? And when the opportunity comes, it does not wait, like Amir al-Mu'mineen would say. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, a young man whom the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his holy progeny would send him to Medina to guide the people of Yathrib. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he came and he had a beautiful voice. He recited the Quran in a beautiful manner. He invited people towards Islam. When he was sitting in the place and reciting Quran, do you know what would happen? People would embrace Islam. As soon as they would do so, there's a well right next to where he was. They would go and throw themselves in the well. So people would ask, why are you doing that? Why are you throwing yourself in the water? The people would say, we want to cleanse ourselves. We've become Muslims. We don't know. We want to be pure. As soon as we've embraced this religion, we need to understand that, we have discovered a wonderful path, a path of salvation. Indeed, a great lesson that can be learned from what? From Muharram, from Ashura, is opportunity. Ansarullah means an individual who's presented with a forsa, meaning he utilizes that opportunity. Muharram is a time of transformation. Tell me, compare your state, and I advise myself first and foremost. This year compared to last year. How were you last year in Muharram and how are you this year? Some people say I'm better, alhamdulillah, fantastic. That's how it should be. Some people say I'm the same. Some people say I'm worse. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's mission was to what? To reform the ummah so that they progress, so that they develop, so that they move to the better, right? It's not about stagnation, it's not about going backwards, it's about what? Advancing in all aspects of our development. Therefore, this utilization of the opportunity is of the utmost importance. Ightinam al-faras. Why? Because indeed, without doing so, we have not fulfilled the message of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn the way we should do. Note that there are examples of youth out there in the Muslim world and outside the Muslim world who have not waited for anyone to come and tell them do something. I give you an example of a group of brothers whom I know personally. And anyone wants more information, and I know that they have a branch here. 2 years ago, we were in Hajj, a group of brothers in London. They said, this Hussein ibn Ali, salamullahi alayhi, he doesn't belong to us Shias. He doesn't belong to the Muslims. He belongs to humanity. We speak that, don't we? We say that what he stood for is to what? To inspire human beings, left, right and center. One scholar, he said that I was traveling in Africa, and in Africa I came across a group of scholars, priests, heads of the Vatican. So they saw I was dressed like this in the airport. They came to me and said, you must be a Shia scholar. I said, yes. They said, we have studied your faith. I said, yes. They said, we are in total amazement and surprise. He said, why? He said, they replied, that we have looked at the lives of these 12 leaders that you have. And one scholar I know personally, he said, I went to the Vatican and I saw the library. In the library, you would not believe how many books there are about the Ahl al-Bayt and specifically about Ashura. They read. So they said to the scholar, they said, we're amazed that you have 12 individuals who indeed gave so much knowledge, wisdom, forbearance, love of God, and yet you have not utilized them in such an effective manner. So the Shia scholar says to them, if amongst the 12 you had one of them, who would it be? They said, Hussein. If we had Hussein, we would transform the whole world to Christianity. They said, if we had a man like Hussein, we would make people join Christianity in such a large scale. It's a treasure, right, that we have not explored. Inna al-Husayna misbah al-huda wa safinatul najat. Hussein is the ship of salvation, the lantern of guidance. Imam Rida alayhi salam was asked, kullukum sufunun najat, you're all ships of salvation. Yet he responds back by saying, na'am, kulluna sufunun najat, ولكن سفينة الحسين أوسع وفي لجج البحار أسرع. Hussein, his ship is bigger and faster in the oceans, right? So what happens? These group of people said, let's introduce Abu Abdullah to the world. Let's ask the question, who is Hussein? They came, they sat down, they wrote articles engineered and geared to non-Muslims, right? Mentality of non-Muslims. They went to London underground stations, they went to the buses, they had posters on the streets of London. They imprinted cards which invited the neighbor at the time of Christmas to investigate and ask the question, who is Hussein? While saying underneath, we wish you a happy Christmas. 50,000 cards were printed. People were putting it into their neighbors' homes. They had adverts, they had a website. And all of a sudden there was an explosion, not a physical explosion, but an explosion of guidance. People were inspired. Non-Muslims started to look, who is this man? They started to ask for a pack that they would get free of charge, with books, with CDs, with information about Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And today, they have over 60 representatives around the world after 2 years. Even in Melbourne, even in Sydney, in many areas around the world, in Beirut, in India, in America, many places, they have representatives. And do you know what they do? Blood donation. They feed the homeless. Activities and work that serve people. So question that we have to ask ourselves today is, if we are in an opportunity, are we using it? Are we neglecting it? Have we surpassed and moved out of our comfort zone? Or are we just comfortable doing what we are doing? That's number one. Number two, very importantly, a characteristic of Ansarullah is what? Is those who seek to place happiness in the hearts of others. Because you know, sometimes we hear good news, right? Everyone likes to hear good news and to be told good news. And good news places happiness in our hearts. But this good news is subjective. Some people might give you good news, but it's not. I remember there was a man whose wife was about to give birth. He went to the hospital and he said to the midwife, I'm not going to go into the delivery suite, I will stay outside. And when my wife gives birth, come and let me know, right? So he stood there was 2 other men sitting next to him. So he looked at them and says, what are you doing? They said, we're also waiting for the news of our wives or partners, sadly, in some societies, giving birth. He said, okay, good. So we're all in the same boat here. After a while, the nurse comes out and says to the first man, she says, good news. He says, what? She says that you have been blessed with twins. 2 kids. He smiles. He looks at the 2 other men. He says, I can't believe it. They're like, why? He says, because I work for DoubleTree, you know, the hotel chain. And DoubleTree, twins, very good. There's a coloration. He goes away. He goes inside, right? After a while, the nurse comes out and says to the second man, she says, I have wonderful news for you. Great news, happy news. She says, what's the news? He says, what's the news? She says, you have been blessed with triplets, with 3 kids. This man is amazed. He looks at the final man and says, can you believe it? He says, why? He says, there's a company that I work for that provides a mobile phone service. It's called 3. And so, I've been blessed with 3 kids. He goes away. As soon as he goes away, this man is seen very anxious, sweating, walking left and right, you know, perspirating. Someone came to him and said, are you okay? What's wrong with you? He says, no, I'm not okay. I work for 7-Up. So meaning what? Sometimes the news that we get from people, although it might be good, it is on the surface not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you want the best news, I give you the best news. And the best news that the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, give good glad tidings to the whom? To the believers. Whom are the believers in reality? Because people often ask this question, how do I get close to Allah? How do I become an individual who attains the highest degrees of Iman? And qurb lillahi azza wa jal. The answer is found in the narrations of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. The closest a human being reaches to Allah is when they improve the lives of others. Is when they place happiness in the hearts of others. إدخال السرور في قلب المؤمن. When you make others joyful, when you make them happy. You know, this is something that we ignore. This humanitarian aspect of the religion of Islam is so powerful, it's so motivating, it's so inspiring. So many ayat, so many narrations talk about the impact of changing other people's lives positively, in any shape or form. You know, we have an established hadith from Rasul al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is mentioned that the Prophet of Islam would say, whomsoever places happiness in the hearts of the believing brother or sister, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him or her 100 stations, the least of which is Jannah. The least of which is Jannah. Can you imagine what else it could be? The idea is what? The idea is Islam defeats and it stands in front and against egocentric, selfish attitudes. It's not about me. It's not about the ego. It's about the community. It's about the overall society, right? So each and every individual, if they want to be of the helpers of Allah, with so many other issues that they can work on, one key element is to serve, is to make themselves available. If someone comes and asks them for assistance, if someone comes and asks them for a haja, to fulfill the haja, narrations of the Ahl al-Bayt say you need to fulfill it, and if you don't fulfill it, then direct them to someone who can. Point them to where they can find this assistance. And there's so much key emphasis on it. Can you imagine if today you get the blessing and the tawfiq of doing tawaf with the Imam of our time? Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. Can you imagine if you're doing tawaf and you're with the Imam, you would not want to leave him, right? And what happens? That Aban ibn Taghlib, who is the companion of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he is doing tawaf with Imam Sadiq around the Kaaba. And all of a sudden somebody calls him, wants his help. Aban! He calls him from outside the tawaf, and he ignores the call. 3 times he's called and he ignores. Imam alayhi salam looks at him in tawaf and says, why didn't you answer him? Why didn't you respond to him? He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I'm in tawaf with you. I can't leave tawaf. He says, why can't you leave tawaf? He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, this is a wajib tawaf. I can't break it. He's arguing with the Imam. Can you imagine? Although he was a very respected companion and a great scholar, Imam said, if you go to his help and aid now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you more reward than the individual who performs tawaf continuously around the Kaaba for 7 days. 7 days of tawaf! Yet all you have to do is go and listen. What can I do for you, brother? How can I assist you? How can I help you? On the day of judgment, when people are resurrected, there is a creation of God that comes and holds the hands of the believing brother and sister or brother, mu'min or mu'mina, and takes them to Jannah. And they wonder, who are you? Identify yourself. They would say, I am the happiness. أنا السرور الذي أدخلته في قلب المؤمن أو المؤمنة. I am the happiness that you instilled in the hearts of your believing brother or sister. Allah makes it into a creation that will look after individuals. What we have today is a challenge. The challenge is there is so much that we can do to make a difference, to be the change that we would like to see in the world. Many times we say, why is this not happening? What is this? Why is this not progressing? We ourselves are not instigating that change, that development, that process ourselves, right? That's why when we look at this idea, for instance, charity, there are people out there today in Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people are displaced, who've had to flee the worst of human beings, these terrorists, these people who are worse than animals, and whomsoever supports them and gives them funding and their ideology, which is the cancerous ideology, all these individuals are worse than animals. Now, these people are being driven by these wretched enemies of God in Syria and in Iraq. They want assistance, they want help. They look at people around the world for help. People in other countries, right? Even within the own country that we may reside in, opportunities are so many, right? And to make that stance, to make ourselves identifiable as human beings who are Muslims and care about humanity, because the objection about the religion of Islam is that we Muslims have cocooned ourselves. We have kept ourselves to our Husayniyas, to our mosques, and the world is asking and is wondering, what are we doing? What are we providing? What services are we developing for the betterment of other human beings? Therefore, an individual who would like to support Allah and becomes part of Ansarullah needs to care about whom? The creation of Allah. When I give to an individual my time, my money, anything, what happens? I may be fixing their dunya, but they're fixing my akhirah. They're fixing my akhirah. You know, that's why Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam would kiss the hands of the poor. He would say, why? Ya Rasulullah, you're giving wealth to him. He says, no, this money that I'm going is first grabbed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Metaphorically, I am what? Embracing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the beauty of really instigating that process in our lives, to think about others before ourselves. You look at whom? You look at Karbala, and it's the school of altruism and sacrifice. It's the school of serving others. Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, somebody comes to him in Medina, knocks on the door. He opens the door, is a poor man. He says to him, can I help you? He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I asked in Medina, they said the most generous house is the house of Hussein. So I'm poor, I need help. Imam says, wait. He goes to his house, comes out, but does not open the door. He extends his hands with some money, with a bag of money, and says, take it. So the man takes it and goes. People said to Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, why didn't you open the door and just give it to him like normal? He said, it's because lest he looks at me and I look at him, and there's maybe a degree of humiliation in his eyes that he has taken something from me, and I may come across in his eyes to be better than him. I want to save his dignity. I want to make him happy. I'll take him the money. Allahu Akbar. The Ahl al-Bayt thought about others all the time before themselves. If Sayyida Fatima, if they had not taken and usurped Fadak from her, if someone had come and asked, I want Fadak, she would not hesitate to give it. As she did not hesitate on the night of her wedding to give her wedding dress. As she did not hesitate for 3 days. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. So many incidents. Imam al-Hussein, some lady, some servant maid gives him a flower. He says, أَنْتِ حُرَّ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. You are free in the way of Allah. They say, Ya Rasulullah, she just gave you a flower. He responds back by saying, Allah has taught me that if someone is kind, I reciprocate this kindness much more. I give much more. She gave me that flower as a symbol of her respect. Yet of course, the idea that emerges is what? Karbala and the great lessons such as Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. What can be said about the loyalty and the altruism of this man that has not been said already, that has not been pondered already? A man who is continuously pondering and concerned about the welfare and the well-being of others. Imam al-Hussein, before Karbala, he feeds whom? He feeds his enemy water. Al-Hur, and 1,000 of the horsemen of Al-Hur, they came, they surrounded Imam al-Hussein. Before he reached Karbala, Imam would give them what? Water. Somebody said, I came, I saw a man I did not recognize. He said to me, come down from your horse. He spoke to me in the Lughat Ahl al-Hijaz. I didn't get what he was talking about. So I said, I don't understand you. Then he spoke to me in the language that I understood, people of Kufa, the dialect. I came down from my horse. Then he said, lower your head. I lowered my head. Then he fed me water from his hands. I quenched the thirst. This is a man from the army of Hur. He goes, they come to him, they say, do you know who that man was? I said, no. He came and asked me and said, I want to feed you water. They said, he is Hussein, the son of Ali, the son of Fatima. He fed you water. And you know when the whole army of Hur had been quenched? Imam al-Hussein said, bring their horses. Quench their thirst as well. Look at the love. Look at the dimension of altruism, that even animals were encompassed in the compassion of Hussein ibn Ali. And today the world needs to know that, right? The world is thirsty for this inspiration, this motivation, this knowledge. Indeed, despite all this that we witnessed, and this great lesson that we learned from Karbala, that the moment I shed my tears, the moment I beat my chest, the moment I cry out Labbayka Ya Hussein, the moment I wear the black, the moment I honor Aba Abdullah, the moment I attend the majalis of Aba Abdullah, because one of the maraja says attending the majalis of Aba Abdullah Al-Hussein around the world is like an individual who sits in the corner of the shrine of Imam Al-Hussein. And the thawab of attending the majalis of Aba Abdullah is that of ziyarah of Aba Abdullah Al-Hussein, and that could be accepted. Why? Because there is so much emphasis on keeping the message of Aba Abdullah alive. 2 days ago, few brothers of ourselves in Saudi, followers of the Ahl al-Bayt, in the commemoration of the majalis of Aba Abdullah, they were shot indiscriminately. In Iraq, over 30, 40 of the followers of Ahl al-Bayt were torn into pieces. You have in Pakistan several bombings. You have even in Sydney somebody being shot in the majalis of Aba Abdullah. They want to extinguish this flame of love and attachment, this flame of loyalty. But when we wish to keep this flame alive, it's not simply only to keep the majalis going. The majalis and the emotions are powerful. They have to continue. Azadari, mourning has to continue. But there is a message for Aba Abdullah for each and every one of us. That message is, have I and the remembrance of Hussein and Ashura made a difference? And if it hasn't, why has it not? Have it penetrated my heart? When I beat my chest, I'm pledging the allegiance to Hussein. When I cry, I'm pledging allegiance to Hussein. When I say Labbayka Ya Hussein, O Aba Abdullah, I will do whatever is necessary to raise the principles and values in my life and in the lives of my family members, so that we can truly be individuals who are known as Ansarullah, and the best of those who are Ansarullah were Ashab al-Hussein and his Ahl al-Bayt. Because he himself said, I have not seen individuals who are companions like you in loyalty, in dedication, in devotion. And that's why it was so difficult for people to witness these crème de la crème of human beings at that time to go and not come back, to go and fight and not return. Habib ibn Mudahir, Zuhair ibn al-Qaym, Muslim ibn Awsaja, John, Abis, all those individuals, one after the other, they do not return. And then the Ahl al-Bayt, and then individuals like Ali al-Akbar and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and al-Qasim and the sons of Zainab, and even the 6-month-old child, all these individuals, a lady who stood to look at them being massacred on the plains of Karbala is Sayyida Zainab. Wallah, I remember this sight. Some of you may have seen this. That a lady in Syria last year, she went inside this morgue, this cemetery, and there was a body of her son. Her son had defended the shrine of Sayyida Zainab in Damascus, in Damascus, and he was martyred. It was the first time that she sees the son. She sits and she's smiling, and she looks, and then they start to cry. And then she looks at the women and says, why are you crying? My son was martyred for Zainab. And what best status can there be? And then she lifts her head towards the heavens. This mother who's so patient, has even seen her own son being killed. She says, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. Oh Allah, accept this from us. This is the magnificence of Sayyida Zainab, that she saw much more than any other individual in Karbala, much more than any other human being witnessed as far as the calamities. And what heart did Zainab have, that she stood on that tell known as Tell al-Zainabiyya, and she cried out, O people, do you not see the grandson of the Holy Prophet? Do you not witness this is the beloved young man who the Prophet used to embrace and kiss, who the Prophet used to respect? Are you not doing anything? How can you witness this sight? She looks at Umar ibn Sa'ad. Wayhak, she says to Umar ibn Sa'ad, are you not Muslim? Umar ibn Sa'ad cries. Even Zainab's word had an impact upon this wretched individual. Yet still, shimmer sits on the chest of Aba Abdullah. Zainab on that night, what did she witness? She witnessed the taking off of the hijab. She witnessed the children running from one corner to the other, the burning of the tents, the cries, the wailing of the children. They would come to her, they would say, Amma Zainab, Ayna walidi? Where is my father? Amma Zainab, Ayna akhi? Ayna waladi? Where is my brother? Where is my son? She had to console them. She had to calm them. She had to defend about Imam Zayn al-Abidin from being killed by Shimr. She had to do all this. Yet of course on that night, on the night of the 11th of Muharram, Lady Zainab is tired. The children are about to go to sleep, and she realizes that there is one daughter of Abu Abdullah who is missing. She was so concerned for the well-being of the children of Abu Abdullah that she leaves the tent and she's wondering, where is this daughter? Sukaina. Sukaina's not there. Where is she gone? She goes to the battlefield. She finds Sukaina next to the body of her father, Abu Abdullah. Next to the headless body. The body that is described to be like a hedgehog where every corner was stabbed and it was full of arrows. She'd seen that Sukaina was there. She says to Sukaina, oh Sukaina, why have you come here? It's dark, it's at night. There are enemies lingering around. Sukaina looks and says, Amma Zainab, la talumuni. Oh my auntie Zainab, do not blame me. I miss my father, Abu Abdullah. I want to see my father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Then she can hear from the direction of the body the following that was said. This is a message for you and I. Shi'ati mahma sharibtum azba ma'in fadhkuruni aw sami'tum bigharib أو شهيد فاندبوني فأنا السبط الذي من غير ذنب ذبحوني. Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein says, when you drink some water, remember the thirst. Remember that Abu Abdullah died thirsty, the children, the cries. Sayyida Zainab takes this young daughter of Abu Abdullah. She goes inside, back into the tent. Now everybody's asleep. Now people are resting, yet Zainab is not resting. It's time for her to go next to the body of her father, of her brother Abu Abdullah. She sits next to the body. She places her hands under the body and cries out, Wa Jaddah, Wa Muhammadah, Wa Abba, Wa Aliyah, Wa Ja'farah, Wa Hamzatah, Wa Ammar. Hada Husayn bil-Haram muqaddab ad-dima' مسلوب العمامة والرداء وبناتك سبايا. Allah, she then looks up to the heavens. She says her famous line, Ilahi, Ilahi, taqabbal minna hada al-Qurban. Oh Allah, accept this Qurban from us. Later on, Sayyida Zainab falls asleep. She falls asleep for a while. In her dreams, she finds that one young daughter of Imam al-Hussein is missing. Now she's wondering where this young daughter is gone. She wanders out onto the battlefield in Karbala. She finds that this young daughter is with a lady who's covered from top to toe, including her face. She doesn't recognize this lady who is looking after this young child of Abu Abdullah. She comes to her, says to her, Ajarakillah, may God bless you and give you a reward. You've looked after the yatima of Hussein. At that moment the lady looks at her and says, my daughter Zainab, do you not recognize your mother Fatima? I am your mother Fatima al-Zahra. Sayyida Zainab said, my mother Fatima, where were you earlier on today? Where were you, oh my mother? I wish you saw the arrow pierce on the throat of the young 6-month-old child. My mother, I wish you saw the arms of Abul Fadl being amputated. Oh mother, I wish you saw the hooves of the horses trample on the body of my brother Abu Abdullah. Allahu Akbar. Imam Zayn al-Abidin had to witness so much. Imam Zayn al-Abidin himself, who was so ill, he wanted to fight. The narrations tell us that when he heard his father cry out, Allah, hal min nasirin yansurna, Allah, hal min mughithin yughithuna, يذب عن حرب رسول الله. Imam Zayn al-Abidin says to his auntie Zainab, oh my auntie Zainab, I wish that you give me a stick and a sword. Why? Because I want to go and fight with my father. I can't be hearing him crying for help and no one assisting him. At that moment Sayyida says, no, you have to remain so that through you the line of the Imams continue. Yet Imam Zayn al-Abidin would have to come back to Karbala. He comes back on the 13th of Muharram. He comes back to bury the bodies of the martyrs of Abu Abdullah and his family and companions. He sees the body of his father, 3 days, no ghusl, no kafan. He sits next to the body. Bani Asad comes next to him. They say, Ibn Rasulullah, do you want any help? Do you want any assistance in the burial? He says, no, inna ma'i man yu'inani. The malaika are helping Imam Zayn al-Abidin. At that moment he digs a grave. He wants to place the body of Imam al-Hussein inside the grave, but every time he picks up part of the body of Abu Abdullah, another part falls off. He cries and he says, oh people, any one of you has a sheet that I can gather the body parts of my father Abu Abdullah. Allahu Akbar. How much did the body of Abu Abdullah move from the place in which he was slaughtered to the place that he was buried? You'll see that in Karbala today. How much did the horses trample? How many bones did they break in his holy body? He places the body inside the grave. Those of you who've had to bid farewell to their loved ones, they'll know this is a difficult moment. This is the time to embrace and to bid farewell to the deceased. How do the people do that? They normally kiss the face, they normally embrace the neck. Imam Zayn al-Abidin looks at the body, there is no face, there is no neck, there is nothing to kiss in that part. He closes the grave and writes on it, هذا قبر الحسين الذي قتل عطشانا مظلوما بأرض كربلاء. لا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. These are the moments of dua and supplication, especially after the majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein will not leave this particular congregation without interceding with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fulfillment of our hajat. There are so many brothers and sisters who are suffering across the world, so many of those who are ill and have asked us to remember them in dua. Let's raise our hands all together 5 times al-ayat al-sharifa. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله إلهي بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وآل محمد شافي وعافي مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات تقبل أعمالنا اقض حوائجنا لا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا اللهم لا تخرجنا من هذه الدنيا حتى ترضى عنا اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا وارزقنا الجنة اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين واخذل الكفر والمنافقين ودمر أعداء الدين اللهم عجل لفرج ولي أمرك واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره ومن المستشهدين بين يديه إخواننا أخواتنا في العراق في سوريا في السعودية في البحرين في باكستان من شيعة علي بن أبي طالب إلهي فرج عنهم يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين بالأخص إلهي فرج عن الشيخ نمر النمر برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح مؤسسين هذا المجلس الشريف رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة تسبقها صلوات.